Welcome to Blooming Dandelion, where we explore healing, growing, and evolving to live a balanced and fulfilling life. I'm your host, Andrea Rivera Casul, and each week we'll dive into practical tips, inspiring stories, and expert advice to help you bloom. Let's get started. Hello, Dandelion. We are back again for another episode of Blooming Dandelion. This has been the craziest roller coaster, and I know that I say it every time that I start the podcast, but it's just, I am a very humble person. I tend not to, give myself or shower myself with accolades, and sometimes we need to stop doing that. We need to be proud of our work. We need to appreciate the hard labor that we do. So I'm going to take a moment to appreciate myself and to give myself a pat on the back, because I think that it is so important to be consistent in things that we are passionate in, to gain back trust into ourselves that we may have lost in the spark. And it's just one of those things that we don't do just to be humble. And it's okay to be humble, but it's okay to brag about yourself too. You are the best thing out there. Claim it, okay? All right, anyways, we are going to start off the episode. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a vulnerable one. I know that all the podcast episodes hopefully feel vulnerable and feel like we are talking to each other. Again, I think I said it in the last episode that I want it to feel like we are hopefully cozied up, talking one-on-one, and that you feel seen and heard and can listen while you're doing anything. So we're going to start off by doing the bloom and soil. We put that into our podcast episode last week, and I'm going to continue doing it. I want to know bloom and soil. So I'm going to tell y'all my soil of the week, okay? My soil of the week is not too deep, but it has affected me this whole week because I haven't been able to go to the gym. So my soil of the week is that I pulled a muscle in my neck and my shoulder. So if you are seeing our episode on YouTube, I'm going to show you how much I can twist my neck right there. And then the other side right there. So I have lost my not lost. It's painful. I am in pain. But anyways, that is my soil. I am sad that I've had to take time away from the gym, but I'm glad that I'm doing it because I would not want to mess my shoulder and my neck even more, and I am going to go to the doctor to get it checked out just because I want to make sure that I haven't injured myself. It's important to take care of ourselves, mentally, physically, okay? My bloom of the week. My bloom of the week was just the positive reactions. I'm going to keep on saying that. I know you're going to get tired of me. Please don't get tired of me. Come back. But it's just the positive, feedback from everyone listening to the podcast. And I don't get tired of it. And it's not because it puts me at the center of attention or anything. I just think that when you do the work and you see that people resonate, I think that that's valuable. I think that that's beautiful. And again, I'm wanting to create a community. And so if it resonates with so many people, then I know that I'm doing the right thing and it feels good. So that's my bloom. It's kind of corny, but I love corny. So it's just a great thing to be able to see the hard work and labor pay off at the end of the day. But another bloom is that I've just been able to really get into the groove of things with my consistency, with my scheduling, with all of the things, and I'm loving it. So that is also kudos to me for putting in the work of scheduling stuff because, when we talked about it last week, why were we slacking? That was a wake-up call for me too, okay? It's not just a wake-up call for all of y'all. It's a wake-up call for all of us. I include myself in this podcast and things that we are working on together, okay? So don't think that I'm just calling all of y'all out and saying, don't do it. I'm doing it too. I'm doing it right there with you. So, this week's podcast is one that has impacted my life forever. And so I've been the last couple of years reading and watching videos and exposing myself to more body positivity, body neutrality, fat liberation, all of these terms that sound nuanced but aren't really nuanced. And I have been just not taken aback, but surprised by the level of, not confusion, but I guess to say, like, people just don't know where they align themselves with. Is it body positivity? Is it body neutrality? And if you don't know either of them, what is it, right? Is it the self-love journey? And that all encapsulates it. But when I have read all of these items and stuff, it has invigorated a lot and made me understand a lot of the process of being plus size, fat, overweight, or obese, right? Because those are the medical terms. But when I think about all those things, I go back to think about all of the things that I've gone through in life. The most recent one was in 2020. I lost over 140 pounds, and that was a lot. And I also think about every single time that I went to the nutritionist and the impact that that left on my life. And this all really stemmed also from one TikTok that I watched. And this TikToker, her name is Jules Lebron. She is a makeup influencer, a trans makeup influencer. She is a trans woman, and I think initially she was based in Chicago. I'm not sure if she's moved. I know that she has moved. I just don't know where, and that's okay. Privacy. But Jules is someone that brings me joy when I see their content. They're so funny, and she is always posting great makeup looks, great makeup techniques for hyperhidrosis, for us people that sweat a lot. I don't have hyperhidrosis, but I do sweat a lot. So, having these tips and tools from someone that goes through it is so great. But I specifically stumbled upon her video posting, answering someone's question about, what made her want to lose weight, because she had gone through a little bit of a weight loss journey. And she mentioned that another TikToker, their name is Glamzilla, and she had, I believe, bariatric surgery. Do not quote me on that, but I believe that she had some type of procedure done to lose weight, and she has been very successful. She's documented her whole process. She's documented how much weight she's lost and everything. And in the TikTok, Jules essentially, said that it wasn't because of the health at the time. It wasn't because of looking good or anything like that. It was, at the end of the day, seeing how much more successful Glamzilla got after losing the weight. And hearing that impacted me a lot. It gave me a wave of sadness, and it gave me a wave of clarity for a lot of things as well. So that's a little bit of background first that I wanted to give y'all on why we're digging deep into this, because I get inspired, right, by content creation and by people posting their thoughts and feelings and all that stuff. And Jules posting this was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. I think back to, obviously, the closest time that I've lost weight was in 2020. And when I think back to that time in 2020, 2019, where I was at, I can guide you a little bit into my mind frame and all that stuff. So I know in the first episode of our podcast, our series, I talked a little bit about me surviving DV, and we haven't really dug deep into everything. And as time goes on, I will dig deep a little bit more and more, and even maybe we'll share a whole podcast episode on my story. But truly, the last couple of months after getting married, which was in 2018, I experienced so much hate, so much criticism over my weight. So when I was actually engaged, and this is taking a little bit more backstory, when I was actually engaged, I went to the doctor to get checked up at an OBGYN, and they told me, that was the first time that they told me that I had PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. I left there not understanding anything about my diagnosis. I left there knowing that they told me that I was always going to, essentially be fat, always gain weight, because there's not really much that I could control. They gave me a bottle of metformin and told me that I would never have kids. Imagine being, I think I was probably 23, 24 years old. Imagine being 23, 24 years old and being told that, hey, the dream that you had of possibly creating a family probably is not going to happen. Your struggles with physical health and your weight, it's going to be a problem. I left there just broken. And again, not understanding my diagnosis, because they didn't give me anything. They did not give me anything to support me. The only thing that they had left me with was a consultation with the diet clinic, with the weight loss clinic. Which again, triggering, because I have gone through nutritionists my whole entire life. So I was ready. I wanted to get fit and all that stuff. But when I got home, a lot of the fights sometimes with my ex-partner, they would bring up that I wasn't good enough, that my body wasn't good enough, it wasn't good enough to create life, that the basic thing that I was meant to do as a woman, I couldn't do. And that's where all the mental manipulation and psychological warfare, so much stuff that happened. But it truly was kind of the grounding topic, the grounding conversation that really impacted me the most after everything that I had been through. I knew that I was, overweight. I knew that I was fat. I knew that I was all these things, that I looked different, that I was, had more curves, had, more butt, more thighs, all that stuff. I knew all of that stuff growing up. But hearing it from the partner that you love, and I say that in quotations if you can't see me because you're not watching it on YouTube, which is fine, but hearing it from the person that you love the most, that you have married, committed your life to, breaks you. It breaks you. I essentially, once I left that marriage, I went back to Puerto Rico, was again emotionally drained, broken, tired, didn't know what to do. The most that I had planned for my life at that point, because my bank accounts were drained and I didn't have anything to my name essentially, because I had lived on an on-campus housing position. I literally left to be home with family for a couple of weeks, and I then said, the only thing I have is me being able to go to Boston and work at Boston Ballet one more summer and figure out what it is that I want. Boston Ballet that summer truly saved my life. And oh my gosh, I didn't think I was going to get emotional. But I truly think that a lot of the things that I did in 2019 ended up saving my life. I left to go to Boston after being with family for a couple weeks, and truly it was the time that I needed. And going to Boston, working as a residential counselor there, I started noticing that my body wasn't giving the 100% that it was once giving. So we were walking around the whole city, and my feet were hurting a lot. I was in a lot of pain. It was probably the highest weight that I've ever been, and I didn't know what to do. I was using food as a crutch for so many years, And still to this day, I struggle with food and with overeating and binge eating. And that summer, I was living off of a little tiny paycheck. Thankfully, the program paid for your housing, and I was able to connect with people that truly loved me and are still friends to this day, and comforted me, because during the time that I was there was going to be my first wedding anniversary. And I remember how hard that was. I remember calling my mom. I remember, discussing how impactful it was going to be. Wow, I did not know it was going to be such an emotional podcast. I truly do this podcast because it's really healing for me. It's allowing me to process information and hopefully help so many others out. So if you are uncomfortable with tears, I'm sorry. But this is human emotion and it's real life. And I'm just human. But essentially, after being in Boston and being with friends and all that, that's when I decided to stay in Boston and end up meeting up with my cousin, which that's another story for another time. I'm so glad that we have so many stories to tell. But essentially, we move in together, and I was working 2 jobs. I had just started to figure out where it was that we were living, getting comfortable with the area, getting comfortable with other people around me as well, and still healing while this is all going on. And so there was at one point I told, my cousin, I told her, I was like, I really want to focus on my health, my weight loss this next year. And 2019, at the end of 2019, starting 2020, is when I started my whole weight loss journey. And I remember that for me at the time, I wanted to also feel physically better, but part of the decision to do this whole weight loss again and go through the diet journey and go through eating healthy or whatnot, whatever you want to label it as, going through the diet and weight loss journey essentially was for me to also reclaim back my strength, because I had been torn down by my ex, and he would always obviously tell me about my body, but the last couple of weeks before the wedding and even after the wedding, the common denominator that I was always told was how lazy I was, how I would never do anything, how I would just sit in a corner or lay down. And it was something that I wanted to take back the narrative of, because I knew that I'm not just lazy, right? I just got diagnosed with PCOS, which causes a lot of fatigue, which answered a lot of questions of why I was being so tired and lethargic. I also was up against someone who was trained and conditioned to work out their whole life, and I had never. I really would only have volleyball sometimes, the gym classes at school, but I never did a sport. It was never of interest to me. And I really, really, really wanted to heal the part that he had been tearing down. So come 2020, January, I started documenting my weight loss journey. And I started to go to the gym once a day, then it became twice a day, and looking at what I was eating. Then it started to be that I was incorporating, fasting methods, and I saw the weight falling off. I saw me getting energized. I saw myself losing the weight. I ended up losing the weight in roughly 9 months. I never thought that I would get to that size. I never thought that I would lose that much weight. But after going through all of that, I'm now analyzing a lot of the things that I've gone through that weight loss and why it had impacted me so much. When I started gaining back the weight was around 2022, I started getting crazy migraines. I started really not feeling well during the summertime, and I was already bulking. So essentially, I was in a calorie deficit. So a calorie deficit essentially is that you're burning more than what you are consuming. And if you're bulking, you're eating more to supply more energy to your muscles and grow your muscles and all that stuff. Because when I had lost all the weight, I had seen myself and I just didn't see myself anymore. I saw a different person, which is gonna happen. But when I saw myself thin and had lost the things that made me me in a sense, because I had lost my curves, I had lost the body that I had been comfortable with for so many years. And comfortable I use loosely because I think that there's a level of discomfort that any fat person, plus size person goes through with living in our bodies. But essentially, when I was going through the whole weight loss journey and had paused it after getting my migraines and was dealing with my migraines, I ended up gaining all of my weight back because I couldn't go to the gym. I literally was bedridden, sick with migraines and nausea, and I went to the hospital twice to make sure that everything was okay. Tests were coming back clear. There was nothing that they could figure out. And it was a really dark time gaining back that weight because I felt like a failure. I felt like a failure. I felt like I had just given up on myself again. I felt like all the hard work had gone through the window. It was tough. I went through a really dark hole, and it was something that I never thought was gonna happen, but it happened. I thought I was going to maintain my weight loss. I thought I was going to be able to stay the same, and it didn't happen. And essentially my whole life has been a yo-yo diet pattern. It's been up and down in weight loss. It's been up and down in controlling my eating habits. It's been up and down in a roller coaster of emotions. And the last couple of years after gaining back the weight, I've had to really dig deep into, yes, the self-love journey, but dig deeper into body positivity, body neutrality, and fat liberation, and understanding what those concepts mean at all, because they're not things that come up in school. They're not things that come up in possibly conversations with parents, with family members, with anyone. You know, I grew up in a Puerto Rican / Dominican household, and it was always a comment about bodies. It was always, you know, I had a neighbor that told me that I had great hips to birth at one point, and I was literally a young teen. I had comments about, you know, being ready to get married because of my body from strangers. I had, you know, all of these things that impacted my life from the body that I lived in, because a lot of times women of color who are fat, who are plus size, who have curves, are sexualized, are hypersexualized, okay? And it's not fair. It is not fair that we go through these things. And I have read some amazing books lately, and I will be sharing these books. But the book that I'm currently reading, I'm not even done yet, but I'm obsessed with this book right now, is Fattily Ever After. I love the title. I think the title is iconic. I'm gonna have my mom probably be like, what is iconic and why are you saying it like that? But when I read the book, or I'm reading the book right now, it starts off by talking about fat liberation, intersectionality between Black women and, you know, white women as well, and folks that are a part of this process, and how it's really been taken away from the original topic. And so once I finish reading this book, I'm going to share a lot more. But I found this interesting, and I have not read it yet because I wanted to read it on camera and get my honest reaction with this, but essentially, the body positivity movement, this part I did read. I took an excerpt. I'm going to read the next part after. So the body positivity movement originated with the fat acceptance movement of the 60s, which aimed to combat anti-fat discrimination and to celebrate and inspire the validity and acceptance of fat bodies. In the US, this resulted in the creation of the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, which is NAFA, a charity organization dedicated to combating size discrimination across all races. Essentially, this is something that has been something that I didn't even know existed. The book that I am reading is called Fattily Ever After, and the author's name is Stephanie Yoba. Hopefully I said that right. I think I did. But she is essentially an influencer, writer, and everything. And I'm going to read what she added onto the book as the Fat Liberation Manifesto. She did not write this. This Fat Liberation Manifesto was essentially the catalyst to the body positivity and the body neutrality movement and the fat liberation. So we're going to read this together because I have not read it. So the Fat Liberation Manifesto, it says, 1. We believe that fat people are fully entitled to human respect and recognition. Number 2. We are angry at mistreatment by commercial and sexist interests. These have exploited our bodies as objects of ridicule, thereby creating an immensely profitable market selling the false promise of avoidance of or relief from the ridicule. 3. We see our struggle as allied with the struggles of other oppressed groups against classism, racism, sexism, ageism, financial exploitation, imperialism, and the like. 4. We demand equal rights for fat people in all aspects of life. As promised in the Constitution of the United States, we demand equal access to goods and services in the public domain, and an end to discrimination against us in the areas of employment, education, public facilities, and health services. 5. We single out as our special enemies the so-called reducing industries. These include diet clubs, reducing salons, fat farms, diet doctors, diet books, diet foods and food supplements, surgical procedures, appetite suppressants, drugs, and gadgetry such as wraps and reducing machines. We demand that they take responsibility for their false claims, acknowledge that their products are harmful to the public health, and publish long-term studies proving any statistical efficacy of their products. We make this demand knowing that over 99% of all weight loss programs, when evaluated over a 5-year period, fail utterly, and also knowing the extreme proven harmfulness of frequent large changes in weight. Number 6, we repudiate the mystified science, which falsely claims that we are unfit. It has both caused and upheld discrimination against us, in collusion with the financial interests of insurance companies, the fashion and garment industries, reducing industries, the food and drug industries, and the medical and psychiatric establishment. 7. We refuse to be subjugated to the interests of our enemies. We fully intend to reclaim power over our bodies and our lives. We commit ourselves to pursue these goals together. Fat people of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose. By Judy Free Spirit and Aldebaran, November 1973. Ooh, wow. That was, like I said, I had not read this at all. I wanted to read it with y'all. And I didn't think that I was going to get emotional again. This is an emotional one. But this is so impactful. I didn't know it existed. And I hope that if you are watching and listening, that you're learning with me and that you understand the necessity of these items to be public and to be talked about. Too often we're afraid of bringing up things that impact us. Too often we're silenced. Too often we don't have a voice. There's so many too oftens. And I think about my life completely, about how diet culture has impacted my life and the life of many others in my family. I'm not the only one, but I think about myself and the struggles of growing up in the 90s and growing up in fad diets, in all of the different diets that existed between Special K diets and the Atkins diets and Weight Watchers and lean cuisine, all of these things that just were about counting calories and villainizing foods and villainizing your body and making sure that you thought that you were less than. Let me tell you something, I am not less than, and you aren't either. Weight will fluctuate. And as long as you are healthy, and that business is between you and your doctor, and if you don't have a good doctor, go change it. Because a good doctor will always advocate for you and allow you to advocate for yourself. Okay? And I really think back to all of these things, and one of the reasons why I'm so transparent on my social media, on Blooming Dandelion, on my TikTok, on my Instagram, and I show my weight fluctuation. I show off my body. I show off my body in a bikini because I grew up thinking that my body wasn't good enough. I grew up thinking that I needed to be smaller. And when I got smaller, I didn't fill any type of void that was inside of me. When I lost all the weight, it just made me think, why am I being treated better now than when I was at my highest or when I was in the process? When I lost all of the weight, I saw a different side to people that I didn't think I would see, but I did. It's crazy when you go through these types of isolating scenarios that no one could ever understand unless they've walked a mile in your shoes or they know the experience firsthand, which a lot of people that are fat positive, that are fat liberated, that are posting about their love language to their body and appreciating their body for how it is, we all get discriminated against because of the way that we look. And that's not on top of the layers of racism and sexism and all that. But simply because we are fat, we look different, we have a different type of body, it is shunned. I have had videos go viral and my comment section is a disaster because I'm being told that I need to lose weight, that anything that I've done hasn't worked. There's so many comments that I either have to actively delete or that I combat back because I want people to see that I'm not afraid either. I'm not afraid to stand up for others. I'm not afraid to stand up for myself. Whoever it was before is long gone. This is a new Andy, a new day. So sorry if you were expecting to bully me. Not happening. But it's so important that you are in a good mental space to receive any of that information so that you can say, I do not claim this, and you can throw it in the trash. That it's not valid. It does not impact me. It's important to protect yourself, especially if you are a fat person, if you are a plus size person, if you are a thin person trying to gain weight, right? Because this is not only one side of the spectrum. This is the whole spectrum of just weight in general. It's important that you know what it is that is impacting you and how you can be helped out. Because I know that at my lowest weight, I started seeing signs of me developing some type of an eating disorder. I went from one side of an eating disorder to possibly another. And I had to ask my cousin to force me to eat, to remind me to eat. And that wasn't her burden. I was missing out on a lot of things because I was fasting or I wasn't eating, and I missed out on opportunities because I was starving myself. This topic is never easy. Weight loss, weight, body positivity, it's never easy, and it's always going to be a continuing effort to heal any of your trauma with diets, diet culture, weight loss culture. It will get easier. Some days will be hard, like anything that I've talked to y'all about. But this is one of those things that there's so much data that continues to come out, and so many more studies, and there's books out there that share authentic stories about fat liberated women, men, folks that want to talk about their experiences. Because it's okay to be overweight, but be going to the doctor and have every single panel done to you be healthy. You can be plus size, you can be fat and still be healthy. The same way as you can be thin and be so sick. It's understanding that we all have different bodies, and everything that we have internally is so different. And we never know. You could be the healthiest person and tomorrow you're not. So please, please, please make sure that you are taking care of your body inside and out. And we're going to continue this conversation of weight and body positivity, because it's all about healing. It's all about growing and evolving. And this is not going to be the only one. But this is just one of the examples of being sparked with an invigorating message by Jules. Jules posted an amazing TikTok of her vulnerable story, of her truly seeing that she felt like she was othered in the industry, and her layers of intersectionality in her, how she shows up in the world, and her representation, and who she is as a makeup person, who she is as a person, as a trans woman, and also a fat person, and having to go through life and say, I see that another influencer that has lost weight is being more successful, and I want that success. It is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, and it shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be the norm that we are ostracized and pushed to the side. It shouldn't be the norm that we don't see campaigns with people that look like us. It shouldn't be the norm. We're past that. The 2000s, the early 2000s, late 90s were already stressful and shitty enough. Okay? We deserve better representation in the media. We deserve to be seen in any type of form that we want to be seen. And there's so much, I can't wait to share my book list with y'all so y'all can read and really get sewn into the fabric of what is fat liberation and body positivity and fat radical acceptance, because there's so much to learn. And that is from any person, any size, because fat people need allies as well. You need to stand up for fat people as well. The same way that you stand up for Black Lives Matter, the same way that you stand up for what is right, the LGBTQ community and all that stuff, you need to stand up for what is right. And discriminating against somebody's body, their abilities, and all that stuff is wrong. This has been, I know, a heavy topic, and no pun intended. Do not say that. But this has been a heavy topic. It has been impactful for me. I'm sorry if you were uncomfortable again that you heard me cry, but I'm not sorry, actually. I'm not going to apologize for feeling all of my emotions. Don't apologize for feeling your emotions, okay? See, constant reminders that we all need. But again, we're going to keep on talking about this. This is going to be something that we're going to see get talked about more in the media, as I've seen come talk about. This is something that continues to be a blasting topic, a hot topic to talk about. And this is just a little seasoning to start us off, okay? A little dash, if you may, of what this is all about. We're going to talk about this in the next couple episodes when we discuss more in depth on, the pros and cons of weight loss and what really has impacted our society. There's so much that we can talk about, okay? But I am grateful for you, Dandelion. I'm so grateful that you are here. I'm so grateful that you are listening. I do not take it for granted at all. And I hope that you are following us on our Instagram page at Blooming Dandelion Podcast. If not, go ahead and follow us. You can listen to our podcast anywhere that you listen podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, the list goes on and on. iHeartRadio, YouTube. You can watch me on YouTube. Leave me a comment. I want to know your story about weight. I want to know your story about weight loss. I want to know your story and your struggles. I want to know. Write it up. Write it up. It thrills me to know that you are involved in the community. That's how I always want to see it. And just remember that as we keep on tuning to Blooming Dandelion, you are going to keep on growing, evolving, and healing. So hasta luego, Dandelion. Keep on blooming. Love you. Thanks for tuning in to Blooming Dandelion. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Follow us on social media on Instagram at Blooming Dandelion Podcast for more inspiration. And remember to keep on blooming. See you next time, Dandelions.